I still think this might be some of the funkiest theme music that any show uses anywhere, particularly Mr. Scotty Roberts, any paranormal show uses anywhere. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I would have to agree with that wholeheartedly, that's probably the absolute funkiest, funky music I've heard for any paranormal show.
Welcome, everybody. We are here to do what we do best, which is consume a few adult beverages and chat, or some people call it ramble, about meaningless topics that happen to come to mind during the course of our conversation. And that kind of defines it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. Sometimes just rambling is all we've got.
Well, as the Allman Brothers said so aptly, Lord, I was born a rambling man. So we're going to do that tonight. I thought we'd do a couple fun things. Let me see what you think about this, Mr. Scotty Roberts.
All right.
We're in a new year. We're actually in a new decade, which makes it even harder to believe that time is passing so quickly. It really is. And I thought it'd be fun just to see, on Beyond Reality Radio, one of the things we do every once in a while when we have a little extra time is we do this thing called it's a psychic remote viewing experiment, where I draw a card from a playing card deck, and people call, and I focus on the card, and they try to see if they can tap into my thoughts and tell me what card I'm looking at. It's very, very difficult to do.
I have heard it. You had me on the show talking about something, and I was on hold while you were doing that, and I was listening to some of the answers coming in. Some people were so darn close in the imagery they were getting in their head.
Yeah, some people do get close. And the neat thing about using a deck of cards is there's only 52 options, and every time someone gets one wrong, it narrows it down a little bit for the next caller. But I thought we'd try to do this in reverse. Now, I know that you, Scotty, actually have some of thsee sensitivities. I have none. But I thought it'd be fun that if we got some callers a little bit later in this show, we would see if we could do some kind of psychic reading for them for the upcoming year, for 2020. And
you know what? I have my tarot deck here, and I haven't had much by way of alcoholic libation. If you even want to throw some of that in there, we can do one or a couple of card readings for people too.
Well, that's completely up to you. I'll leave that up to you and our callers. Obviously what I'm talking about here, since I have no sensitivities whatsoever, is hopefully going to be a little comical. My guess is that if you pull out the deck of tarot cards, that you're probably a little more serious about it. But I'm cool with that too. If you want to do that for some folks,
whatever we'd like to do tonight, it's there. It's on the table if we find the opening for it. And I don't like to read while drinking. Let me amend that. I can drink. I've drunk wine. I've drunk a beer. I don't like to drink beyond a beer if I'm doing tarot reading.
Okay, well, if we're going to do that, then we want to do that early, because part of the objective of this particular Friday night out for us is to have a few drinks and have a few laughs. So
to cut loose a little bit.
So what do you think about this? I mean, is it my imagination, or as I get older, does time just ramp up to light speed here?
Oh, definitely light speed. I mean, I look at 2020. I think I mentioned this the last time we were on. Old cartoon that I thought I'll be an old man in 2020 because I saw C-Lab 2020 when I was like a 9-year-old kid, Saturday morning cartoons, and I thought I will be really old when that comes. So there you go.
See what happens.
So yeah, and time. It's like every time I turn around, I'm like, where'd the last month just go, or the last year? They're flying by.
Forgive me while I'm trying to get into our.
It's all right.
No, I'm just trying to get into the Facebook part of our discussion here, because we've got people already asking about readings, and yeah. See, you've stirred the pot here a little bit, Scotty.
I've stirred the pot. I always tell people when I do readings on my own channel, in the chat room, I say, don't even start asking yet, because I'm not going to see it. I'm going to miss it. When I say go, I'll take the top 3. That's kind of what I do now. And then I tell them, stick around. We'll probably do that a little later, too. And because it just gets, I can't scroll back far enough sometimes and it's hard when you're on the radio to be scrolling through and digging for people asking for stuff. So no offense to anybody, but You don't have to you don't have to not to be crass, but to be fun with this. You don't have to bum rush on the tarot readings. We'll get to them and we'll call for them.
Yeah, and we've got some people who are watching us on Facebook. We also have a YouTube stream going on. I tried to get us onto Twitch tonight as well, because from what I'm being told by my kids, if you're not on Twitch, you're not cool. Have you heard about this Twitch thing?
I've heard about Twitch, but I've never been on it.
Yeah, I don't know the deal. I'm not really sure. Maybe some people can educate us. Now, first thing I've got to let everybody know is that we have a new call-in number. It's new this week. So if you've written down the old number, it will no longer work. Somebody told me it actually rings up a Pizza Hut somewhere in Minneapolis. That's near you.
Oh. Yeah, that's
Scotty?
my hometown.
Yeah. I don't think that's true, but I think it's funny. So the new number, I'm going to put it in the chat and in the comments here, is 607 282 4029. That is the new call-in number. And that is the number which we will blindly answer, because we do not have a call screener. And we will we'll do a couple different things here. We'll take questions. We'll welcome comments. We will do our best to give you some kind of psychic reading, which hopefully we'll find a little humor in. Scotty is going to do a few tarot card reads for people as the night goes on. And hopefully you're all able to relax and have a cocktail or a non-alcoholic beverage of your choice and enjoy the evening, because this is our chance to kick back, put our proverbial feet up on the desk, and just bullshit a little bit.
Yeah, and we don't get much chance to do that during the week, right?
We don't get nearly enough chance to do that during the week. Although I will say that if I can sneak a vodka soda in now and then, I might do that. I might do that.
I don't know if I mentioned this. One of the best interviews I ever did was with the late John Anthony West. Now, he was not, maybe apropos for the show, he was not the late John West when I interviewed him, but he is now. And if you know who he is, old cantankerous Egyptologist, wrote a book on the water theory on the Sphinx and stuff like that. And he kind of had a voice like this, he kind of talked like that. And he would take tours to Egypt with people several times a year. And he wore, one of the coats with all the pockets, like the jungle safari type coats, and a pith helmet. And that's what he was known for, that for years and years. And he came on my show and he said, "I'll do your show on one condition." He says, "This old Pythagorean likes to drink his vodka straight up." I go, "You get all the vodka you want, brother." And so he sat and did the interview, and I think got slightly pickled along the way. So that was a fun interview with him.
One of the other things I want people to think about tonight, because I thought this would be a fun topic for discussion. And believe me, when we talk about these things, we try to look at the humorous side, although some of these topics are rather serious, and we're not making fun of anyone or anything. But I was thinking about celebrity ghosts. What would it be like if ghosts, let's just throw some things out here, if ghosts had to haunt the place that they died, or had to repeat the things they were doing when they died? With that criteria, what would be some of the funniest celebrity ghosts? Now,
or wearing what they were wearing,
or wear even that is good too. Now, the first one that comes to mind for me is Elvis, because we know that Elvis died on the toilet. Sadly, I've always been a huge Elvis fan, and that's a really sad end to an amazing career and an amazing life. Only 42 years old. But what if Elvis had to haunt that commode for the rest of eternity?
Oh, my goodness. Down in the jungle room.
With that kind of thought process, I'm sure other people know other situations that might be, a little bit funny in this from this angle that can call and share that with us. And we'll do that throughout the night, too, because there's a whole bunch of people that or celebrities in particular that died in very weird circumstances that would make a very interesting haunting situation.
Yes, it would.
You okay with that topic too?
I'm good with that.
Oh wow, we've got quite a list already started here.
Yeah, look at me, and look at how agreeable I am tonight.
You're so agreeable. What is it? What you ate tonight? Is it you got a lot of sleep? Is what's going on?
I had just a really good week. Energy is up. Uh, I don't like winter, but it's been nice up here, which is nice. It's been like, now we get
Yeah.
winters like you get up there in upstate
Yeah.
New York.
Yeah.
It's nasty out here in Minnesota, Wisconsin. I don't know if you were here for. I'm trying to think. No, you weren't.
I've
here
never
for
been.
that one.
Where I've never been in your area during the winter. It's always been the summer.
That's right. We had like 20 below wind chill.
Oh yeah,
not without the wind chill. You 20 below air temperature.
Yeah.
For a paranormal event that people flew in from all over the place. But it has been like 40 degrees, and it gets 50 degrees out on my front patio, which is a southern exposure. So I'm out there without a coat on, having a sip of coffee and enjoying the scenery. So it's been a nice winter so far. I hope we don't get nailed.
Did you have because we've had it kind of mild the last couple of weeks too, but we had a really, really cold and snowy November, which was early. Yeah, you had that too. Yeah, and the first part of December was colder than normal. Hey, this is a little too serious for this program, but we should mention it. How about those unbelievably destructive and catastrophic wildfires in Australia? I did not appreciate what was going on down there. I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to it, and
I didn't either. And I just in the last couple of days saw some stuff on that. And I've actually got several friends down in Australia, and several listeners to my show that come in. They come into the chat room and they talk about it. So it's some of the people aren't affected by it at all, but others, it's the whole continent seems to be on fire or filled with smoke, which is, we had just like 1,200 miles northwest of here. They had big fires up in Canada a few years ago.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
And we'd get up in the morning, and the sunrise would be hazy. You'd smell smoke. It smelled like not nasty smoke. It smelled like a campfire outside, and that was all drifting on the wind from the northwest, from about 1,200 miles away. And the air was hazy for a week, maybe even 2 weeks. So I couldn't imagine if there was something as catastrophic as what's going down on
yeah,
Australia.
I mean, it seems to be, almost apocalyptic the way it's happening down there. And it's so dry. And Australia is a fairly barren country or continent, for that matter, in many of its parts. So it's a lot of dry land, and it's summer for them now. So they're experiencing summertime heat, no rain, and it is just disastrous.
I've heard from people I know down there that said it's just ungodly hot there last month, because that's their summer when we're having our winter up here in the northern hemisphere. So it was hot there. There's a few people I haven't heard back from yet from down there. I think everything's kind of in certain areas is kind of in a bit of crisis.
Well, our hearts, our hearts and prayers and thoughts, obviously, to all the people that have already suffered tragedy because of it, and anybody still in harm's way. Hope you can get to safety. And we always say this: material possessions, homes. While it's certainly horrible to think of losing those things, they can be replaced. But your lives and your health and your personal safety cannot be replaced.
I thought about that, not to be serious or to continue serious, but if you knew your house was burning down and it was going to be a total loss, and you had 2 minutes to grab things, what are some of the things you grab?
Wow, see, that's so hard. I mean, obviously, like personally, I've got a firebox that has some important documents and some important some financial things that are important. I'd grab that, and then beyond that, I'm not sure what I would take. I mean, you think about photo albums, you think about heirlooms, but if you've got just a couple of minutes and it's going to be something you need to carry with you, it's almost impossible to really get much of that stuff.
I know. It's like, what do you grab first? Obviously, kids and pets and things.
Oh yeah, I assume that was part of but already assumed.
Right. But do you grab your laptop? I'd be lost without my life is on my laptop. Do you grab your photo albums? Like you said, once those are gone, they're gone. But now everything's digitized these days.
Well, that helps too. That helps a lot, especially if you do any kind of backing up, or if you've got most people's photos are completely on their phone now. So if you've got your phone in your pocket, you've got that. However, for those of us, you and I, Scotty, who are a few decades older than a lot of the people that are probably listening, we still have a lot of regular photos. All the photos of my kids, for the first half of their lives are regular printed out photos that, we took the roll of film down to CVS and had developed,
My dad, who just turned 80 this year, he sent me a box loaded with photos. He said, I found these photos, and he said, I thought you might want to have them. And there were pictures of he and my mom dating.
Oh, wow.
In like 1956 and 57 and stuff like those kinds of things. Irreplaceable. I scanned them right away, though, so I've got them all digitized.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really smart. And my sister and I have been cleaning out my parents' home. Now, my father died in 2014, and my mother got pretty sick pretty quickly right after that, and then passed away in 2017. And we still haven't gotten rid of their house, and we still have most of their stuff. And one of the things that I have been doing is pulling out pictures. And my mother had, those, I don't know, how big are those storage tubs that you can buy? The average size storage tubs.
Oh, the big Tupperware ones?
Yeah, the big like tubs, tubs? Yeah, the big storage tubs that you can get.
They're about 5 feet because, my arms go out about like this, not to their full extent.
Yeah, so whatever they are, I've got like 8 of those filled with pictures, because not only did my mother and my father, have their pictures that they kept, but as their parents died, my parents seemed to become the hub of the larger family complex, and they became the archive location for all this stuff. So I've got and I'm thinking, man, I have to digitize all these. Now, one of the things I'm curious about, I'm wondering what our chat room thinks about this. There are 2 ways to go when it comes to digitizing. In many cases, you just have a print, so you've got to scan the print. But there are also negative scanners, and I've got a lot of negatives. Is it better to scan a negative using one of those negative scanner devices?
Once you have something in print and you scan that, it's got to be an awfully darn high resolution print for you to pick up detail. Something I've noticed. If you go back to negative work, now I was a photography minor back in college, and which is back in 78, 79, 80. That dates me right there. But one of our professor of photography was one of Nixon's former staff photographers. And we did everything in film back then, in darkroom work. And that's when I learned that things that you might see in a print, even a big high resolution print, when you go into the negative, you're going to find resolutions in there that didn't exist or could not be printed on that paper or weren't printed. And you can see details that weren't there before.
Oh, wow.
So I still have I was still shooting film all the way through the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And I've got tons of slides. I got tons of negatives. Sometimes I pull out a sheet of negatives. I go, what is this? And
yeah.
Hold it up.
Yeah, I know.
And you're going, holy crap. And some of the things I have on there are just amazing. So one of these days, I'll take all that stuff and get it all digitized in really high resolution.
Yeah, that's the thing to do. And then I also have, boxes of Super 8 movies, the home movies. Got to get them all.
Did you do that when you were a kid? Did you take Super 8 movies?
Well, we did. Are you talking about family films, or did I do like my own little projects with the Super 8?
Anything, project work,
both.
family films.
My family archived every Christmas up until I was, probably, 12, 13 years old with Super 8 films. And, and family vacations, whatever it happened to be. And then when I got into my early teens, one of my buddies and I thought we were going to be filmmakers. So we'd take the Super 8 camera out and make these films, 3-minute little films. And none of it was very good. But, so I did both of those things.
We used to, when I was in junior high school, we're talking, what would this be, 9th grade, which had to be 73 to 74, in that range of years. And I was 13, 14. And my buddy and I, we wanted to be filmmakers. We used to do stop action stuff.
Oh, I did that too.
Clay and models and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. It was great. And we were big into, well, you can tell we were big into Star Trek. and so all the stuff that we did Star Trek special effects on film, right on the emulsion side of film.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
it was pretty tedious and time consuming, but that's this kind of stuff we did with Super 8 stuff.
Um,
And now that stuff's all gone. Somewhere along the way, a whole box of that stuff disappeared like 20 years ago. And so I don't have any of that anymore.
yeah, I did the same stop action stuff too. I had a bunch of military vehicles and stuff, and I'd make these little war things with them using the stop action stuff. Yeah, it's funny to think back, and I don't know. I mean, having the ability to take a fairly good high resolution photo with a phone at any time, plus video at any time, plus audio at any time, is really an amazing thing. But it also makes us, I think, lose an appreciation for it. When it's so available, and that goes with anything. When it's so available, you just don't have the same kind of appreciation because you take it for granted.
That's very true.
Oh, look at Scotty Roberts is now in the chat. Hey, Scotty Roberts.
Hey, how about that? Yeah. I've been sitting there for a while.
All right,
I should say something.
You must have another one of these celebrity comical haunting suggestions. Anything come to mind?
Oh. I'm not.
How about Mama Cass? Mama Cass from the Mamas.
I don't remember how she died.
And I'm not even sure. This might be urban legend, but I thought it was she choked on a ham sandwich.
Oh.
And she was obviously a heavy woman.
Yes.
That was one of her vices, and she had struggled with it all of her life. And she ended up dying while choking on a ham sandwich.
I think I've heard that story. Now that's interesting because, well, first I want to ask how many people out there remember who Mama Cass is? I mean, us old timers, we know, but John Wayne haunts the Indians, says Field Guy over in the chat room. I'm trying to think of course, you already mentioned Elvis, but you think of the all the different celebrities and how they died and where they died. Trying to think of something. Nothing comes across me off the top of my head at the moment that would be comical. I'm not thinking comical, but I am thinking of other celebrities and places where, like River Phoenix, who died outside a nightclub. They seem to have picked up what they think is even his voice in EVPs at this nightclub, which is very interesting.
Yeah, what was that called? I went by that not long ago. Mama Cass, I'm just reading some of these chat comments. Let's see here. Colleen thinks she died in her bed eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That would make sense too.
That would be interesting.
Supposedly, she had Field Guy says supposedly the ham sandwich, but she had a heart attack while she was eating the ham sandwich, I guess.
Oh, boy.
And then, somebody said, I think it was Field Guy too, mentioned John Carradine. Now, I'm assuming by the way he mentioned John Carradine. Did John Carradine die having sex or something? Is that what happened?
They found him. It was like auto asphyxiation.
Oh, okay. All right.
Type of thing. Hanging in his
Well, he must have been an old guy. He must have been really old at the time because.
Yeah. Well, how old was he? Because I remember him, distinctly from. We watched Faithful. We watched Kung Fu back in the early 70s on television. He was the star of that show. Quite my name is
That was
Kane.
David Carradine.
David Carradine.
We're talking about John Carradine.
Oh, John was his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed on a long time ago.
So maybe did Field Guy mean David Carradine?
Might have meant David Carradine because it was David that died with the auto asphyxiation sexual thing hanging in a wardrobe. What a way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, I'm going to try this new self-auto-sexuality thing. And next thing you know, you're dead.
Yeah, Field Guy meant David Carradine.
Meant David.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, because John Carradine, he must have been in his 80s when he died, so I can't even imagine that.
And you'd all know him. If people don't know who John Carradine was, you've seen him in just about every single B movie in the 50s and even the 60s when he got old. And he had that very distinctive voice. So, yeah, he was he was an interesting actor.
Who else? I'm trying to think of. I mean, didn't Whitney Houston die in a bathtub?
In a bathtub? Yes. Yeah. Let's see.
We need our chat room to help us out here.
I keep coming up with celebrities who died, but I'm some of them not so strange ways. You hear of a lot of airplane accidents.
Yeah.
A lot of boats sinking. I think of Carol Lombard died in the mountains in a plane. You got Buddy Holly died in a plane.
Jim Croce, John Denver. Did Ricky Nelson die in a plane crash?
Who?
Ricky Nelson? I have to look that up.
Is he still alive?
I have to look that up.
I thought he was still alive. And of course, I keep coming back to Elvis, and I don't need to mention him again because we already talked about him. But Steve Irwin, crikey, Steve Irwin, Animal Planet guy, got stung by a stingray in the heart.
Oh yeah, right. That's right.
And was, I mean, that was pretty painful for a lot of people when he died.
That's right. I remember that. By the way, Ricky Nelson is dead. It doesn't say in IMDb here how he died. So if someone could look that up in our chat room, let us know. I'd appreciate it. Hey, Richie, welcome to the program. I want to start calling out some of these folks that are here: Michelle, Colleen, Teresa, Morgan, Field Guy, Steph, Philip. Did I miss anybody in the last few minutes here? No, I think that's most of the folks. Welcome to the program. Again, this is just an opportunity to hang out and bullshit a little bit. We do have a call-in number. If you want to answer any of these questions, give us some information, comment, whatever, 607-282-4029 is the telephone number to call.
All right.
Let me think. Who else? What are some other celebrities that if they actually had to haunt themselves... Michelle, you're saying plane crash. Is that for Ricky Nelson? Is everybody saying Ricky Nelson? Because that's what I thought it was. Yeah. Okay. So
I remember now that he died. That's you've jogged my memory.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, we just spotted off like 8 or 9 celebrities that died in plane crashes, and those were all like private small plane crashes.
Yeah. How about Cher's ex-husband?
Oh, Sonny Bono.
Sonny.
Oh my God, that was
Sonny Bono.
Poor Sonny. Poor Sonny.
Poor guy.
I mean,
wrapped himself around a tree skiing,
and he always got the bum rap too. He was always played the oaf and the
Yes.
But he was really a smart guy, and he was actually the brains and the songwriter behind the Sonny and Cher act in the beginning part of the career, and
he's the guy who made Cher.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly,
people don't know that.
Yeah, and then he's skiing somewhere, and he's an expert skier, and he ends up hitting a tree and dying. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for looking that up for us, Michelle. Appreciate it. How did Benji the dog die? Why do you ask that, Steph? Is something? Oh, geez, Philip says John Lennon. That was just completely senseless and tragic. Probably always.
That was. I remember the day that happened.
Oh, me too. I was young.
I was in college when that happened.
I was young, and I was a huge Beatles fan, and I just could not believe what I was hearing.
Yeah.
So senseless.
Lindsay Lohan died? No,
she's still alive. She's still
That's a
alive.
shame.
That's a shame.
No, I'm kidding. That's just a joke. It's just a joke, folks. These are the jokes, folks.
Let me think. There's got to be some other great ones. I mean, somebody was it? I think I had somebody on Beyond Reality that wrote a book, or maybe I heard. No, I think I actually heard another program. I get it confused whether I actually did the interview or was listening to someone else doing the interview. But somebody else had a guest on who had written a book about performers who died on stage.
Oh, you know who was one? Old time movie actor. It was it Victor Mature? No, it wasn't Victor Mature. There was somebody who died playing a very famous role on stage. I don't know if you're hearing that.
I do. It sounds like you have a marching band going through the house.
That's an appliance upstairs.
Oh, is that a washing machine out of balance?
Yeah, it's our second floor washing machine, and something I think is out of balance.
Yes, that's what it sounds like. Oh, Janis Joplin. Now, Janis Joplin, she overdosed, right? She was an overdose.
Yep.
She was just a party animal. She would drink bottles
What
of
a
Jack
short
Daniels.
life and a short career
Oh,
she
I know.
had, but
Well,
how famous she was.
She lived way beyond. She partied all the time, and yeah. That's a sad one, and that brings in Jim Morrison as well. That brings in Jimi Hendrix as well.
A lot of drug induced deaths.
The 27 Club.
27?
Yeah, they were all 27 years old. Kurt Cobain. I mean, the 27 Club is a rock and roll, kind of a, I don't know what you call it, not a Hall of Fame, but it's certainly something of notoriety. There's a lot of rock and roll musicians who died at 27 years old. Yeah, Heather, John Denver did die in a plane crash. He was one of those, yeah.
He did a glider, nonetheless.
Was it a glider?
It was a glider, and he didn't feel that, his wife said after the fact, that he didn't feel he quite had a handle on it yet, but he wanted to get up and he thought he was ready to go and try it.
Oh, wow.
And he went up and tried it.
Yeah.
And done.
Of course, there was JFK Jr., a celebrity of some sorts, and
There's conspiracy theories that he didn't die.
Well, I know, yeah.
Because they never found the body.
They did find the body.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they
I thought I heard they never found the. They think it's a replacement, which makes it even more conspiratorial.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually saw a documentary about this conspiracy idea, and it really depends on who you talk to, because I was watching the documentary and I was becoming convinced. I'm like, wow, this really? Why would this? This makes no sense, and all this stuff. And then I saw like a counter interview to the documentary, and they said, well, that wasn't true. This is not true. This is actually what happened, and kind of dispelled all of the notion that I had that it could have been a conspiracy. So I don't know. What do you think? You've watched any of that?
I don't know the particulars of the conspiracy, though I had heard about it, and I thought, what for? Why did he just not want to be alive? Faked his death? What was it? You know what I did think, though? I did think, when I heard that Prince died and Michael Jackson died, I thought these are guys that would be more apt, I would think, to want to fake their deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Just to, I think some people, where did the story of faking your death come from amongst celebrities? It was usually like, I'm so done, and I'm done. I just want to fade out of the scene. Let's go out with a boom, but not really, kind of thing. And the way they died, I mean, both Prince and Michael Jackson died with supposedly accidental drug overdoses. They weren't over the counter, but wasn't it Michael
prescription?
Jackson's
prescription
fentanyl?
Medications. Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I think it was.
they're prescription drugs.
Morgan mentions Robin Williams. Man, that's a sad story there.
That's
just
very sad.
I mean, somebody who brought laughter to so many people. Obviously, a very sad and troubled person. But can you imagine being at a point in your life where that's your that's the only way you see out? I just can't imagine that. No.
And again, not to be maudlin or not happy, but I think it's an interesting point a topic of conversation is, what about somebody? If you talk about hauntings, what do you talk about somebody who is so depressed in life that they would take their own life? What do they have in the afterlife then? Are they stuck with it? Have they released themselves from it? Because haven't we found in paranormal investigation, you run into lots of very sad, trapped spirits. Is that what happens to somebody in suicide? Or do they pass on into happiness and joy? Who knows?
How did this turn into, let's find funny things about the celebrities that might have to haunt the place or the situation they died in, to such a very somber conversation about all this? I mean, we've kind of morphed here. No, I know you're not. It was the natural way this conversation headed, and I find it fascinating nonetheless. And our chat room's offering a lot of suggestions and ideas as well. It's one of those things. It's like why we love true crime stories, because we have this
fascinating topics.
Yeah, and we have this morbid curiosity with this stuff. And I'm not sure what fuels that, but I think we all have it.
How about just thinking of this, popped into my mind. I wanted to formulate this into a question too. Doris Day died, somebody who was this last year, and she was obviously elderly, but she was hot in the 50s and the 60s. And of course, I wasn't alive in the 50s. I was alive in the 60s. But you look back at, silly films like Calamity Jane with Doris Day, and the shape she was in, the way she danced and sang and stuff like that, was fabulous. And now she just passed away this last year.
Yeah, she did.
And I don't even know how old she was when she died, but
91 comes to mind, but I'm not sure if that's 91. Right or not. Yeah, I'd have to look that up too.
No, who is the oldest actor you can think of who is still alive today? That is an old, very huge screen star of the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and even into the 80s. Kirk Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
That dude's, I think he's like 106 years old.
Yeah. Doris Day was
literally.
Doris Day was 97, by the way.
97.
Yeah. I'm gonna look up Kirk Douglas. I think he's like
I thought he was 106, but
I don't think he's quite
wrong.
That old, but I think he's close. He's like 100.
I bought a house from a guy once who was 106 years old.
103.
103.
Yeah.
Kirk Douglas.
Wow.
Would you what's funny is when you see an old actor like that, and then you look at his son, Michael Douglas, who's pushing 80, and you go, wow, your son's almost 80, dude.
Yeah.
And he's still doing movies.
Steph mentions, what about the Hogan's Hero dude, which we're talking about, Bob Crane.
Bob Crane.
Obviously murdered in his bed in a hotel room or basically an apartment in Scottsdale, Arizona, bludgeoned to death with some type of, most likely a camera tripod.
How would you forever like to be wandering around, as a ghost in your boxers?
Yeah, in his boxers. Yeah. That's a great story. I had a guy on the program who wrote a book about the murder of Bob Crane. There's no one's ever been convicted of the crime. There was a trial that was brought like 15 years after the fact, and the man who authorities are rather sure committed the crime was acquitted because evidence had been lost, DNA. Tissue samples had been lost. They didn't have everything they needed, so they couldn't convict the guy. But what a way to go, man! And of course, Bob Crane's story is fascinating too because
it is
of all the stuff he was involved with.
And he seemed like such on screen. He was such a happy, cool guy, and comic actor, and the kind of the stuff he was into.
Yeah, I mean, that was in the early days of videotape and video recording, and he was one of the first people to have a home VCR and video camera, and he would video record his sexual exploits.
Escapades.
Yeah, and they were numerous. He was a celebrity, and any town he'd go to, he'd haul this equipment there, and then his best friend who supplied the equipment to him would follow him there, and they would have quite the time of it. And it was suspected that it was his best friend that ended up killing him. So
that was the word on that.
Yeah, crazy.
Could you imagine if that was your legacy you left behind?
That's the problem. Yeah.
Hey, you're this actor, and you're a successful television series in his case, and the few movies he had done, and yet what is he remembered for? Being murdered with a golf club. Or whatever it was, I think it was a golf club.
Camera tripod.
And having a stash of self-made porn films that was a mile high. So, there you go. There's your legacy. It's like always watch what you leave on. Whenever I go flying around the world or something, I always want to make sure the things on my computer are in order. What are they going to find when they open my computer? Not that there's anything bad there, but I'm just saying. I think it's time for a drink. I just kind of went over a little too far with my.
So Philip in chat is asking who was acquitted. That was John Carpenter, was Bob Crane's best friend. He was the guy that used to
not the movie director.
Yeah, no, different guy. This John Carpenter was the guy that used to travel to meet Bob Crane in these cities, and the two of them would film their exploits with the women that they would pick up. And what is believed, and if you're curious about this story, there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube that that you could look at. But there's also a movie. No, look at this go. Nice. There's a movie called Autofocus, which was a dramatized version of Bob Crane's life.
With Greg Kinnear.
That's right.
Playing Bob Crane.
And Willem Dafoe as John Carpenter. And
Willem Dafoe, yeah.
But anyway, it's suspected that Bob Crane realized that this was starting to destroy his life. He wanted to get his career back on track because he had been basically blacklisted in Hollywood because of his lifestyle. And he decided he was going to get rid of John Carpenter's influence and a company, and told John Carpenter that he no longer wanted to hang out with him.
Didn't like that.
And John Carpenter apparently didn't like that. Went into his apartment at like 3 a.m. and bashed him in the head with a camera tripod and got away with it.
Yeah. And what other famous celebrities were murdered?
I don't know, but Philip keeps bringing up Don Knotts. What happened to Don Knotts?
Oh, Don Knotts. I don't know all the details, but what I heard about Don Knotts, it just the kind of man he died laughing. He was laughing. Not that laughing killed him. He was dying, and he laughed on his way out.
Oh, wow. Well, Don Knotts was quite a comedian. His role in the Andy Griffith Show as Barney Fife is iconic, and probably one of the best comedic roles ever on television.
Absolutely. And his comic acting, his nervous comic acting was just amazing. You could also watch, it just came up because my daughters make mermaid tales for a living. What came up was The Incredible Mr. Limpet. You remember that movie? Don Knotts, live action and animated. He turned into a fish, and how he wished he were a fish.
What's this now?
And The Incredible Mr. Limpet.
That's a Don Knotts film?
Don Knotts film from the 60s.
Oh, okay.
And it's really good. It's like Disney-esque type of animation. It might have even been Disney. I don't remember.
Didn't he do the film called The Ghost and Mrs. Chicken or something like that?
It's something like
The Ghost
that. He did all these. He never did what I would call a serious film that I can remember.
No, never.
He was always in the Apple Dumpling Gang type of movies and stuff like that.
He was like a criminal or a crook in the Apple Dumpling Gang. He and Tim Conway, right?
Yeah, Tim Conway.
Is that right?
And Don Knotts together.
Yeah. So
you don't
funny.
see comedy quite like that anymore.
No,
I find it interesting that good comedy nowadays, the comedy that makes people laugh the most is the comedy that can be the most vile. Who can get the most vile with?
Right.
And I'm no prude. I don't care. I throw the Effenheimer around every now and then quite freely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say it on here, but it's a fun word. But it's become a comic word, where back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, that word was dead serious, so very different.
Yeah.
Limpet. Yes, Heather Mack. Limpet. Limpit.
You have to appreciate comedy before they had to resort to vulgarity and and sex and and not that that's not funny. It can be very funny. However, they used to have to really be creative to produce things that would make people laugh that didn't involve that stuff. Now, again, looking back at some of it, it's rather simple and it's rather, by today's standards, just doesn't make you laugh.
Yeah, it's simple comedy.
But some of that stuff is still brilliant.
You know what was, I thought, a very good, very underrated movie of 2019 was Stan and Ollie. Did you happen to see that?
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm a big Laurel and Hardy fan.
That was huge. I grew up watching old Laurel Hardy movies.
It's some of the best comedy. It's so funny.
John, does he have 3 names? John
Riley? C. Riley. Yep, John C. Riley.
John C. Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Coogan, British actor. Oh my God. These guys were now John C. Riley was heavily made up with bodysuits and everything, but these two guys were so much the spitting images of the characters they were playing. It was outstanding. And to watch the little comedy routines they did, things like salting eggs. Stan Laurel, he could get a whole audience laughing. Talking about simplistic humor, take off his hat and mess up his hair a little bit, and he sat and he put a hard-boiled egg on his knee. Roll it, while Oliver's watching on, getting more perturbed and
Yeah,
perturbed.
exactly.
So, and then salting an egg. How do you make comedy out of that?
I know.
Those guys were comedy geniuses.
Ab-
So, if you ever want to see a good movie, get Stan and Ollie.
And I actually, there's a what's the one I watch? It's Knights of the Desert. It's called. It's a Laurel and Hardy film. It's one of my favorites, and I think
yes, I have seen that. Yes,
or Sons of the Desert, not Knights of the Desert. Sons of the Desert. Yeah.
Where they were like the French Foreign Legion kind of thing.
No, this was the Sons of the Desert was like a, and maybe I have the title wrong, but it was like a fraternal organization, and they want to go to the convention, but they know their wives won't let them.
Oh.
So they make up a health reason that they have. The doctor says they have to go to Hawaii because Ollie needs some sun and some rest to get over this health condition. And they sneak off to the convention, and they get filmed in a newsreel that the wives see while they're at a theater watching a movie. It's just classic. It's good stuff.
Yes, yeah, and it's pretty amazing, that stuff. And,
Morgan mentions
they all died before I think I was even out of my childhood.
Yeah, I think so. I think Laurel and Hardy both died in the 50s.
In the late 50s?
Pretty sure. Yeah. I saw a picture on Facebook, just, it comes up every once in a while. I've seen it a few times, but of some of the Three Stooges. And one I saw today was Larry Fine in the early 70s. It's a picture of him in his quote-unquote retirement. It's interesting to think those guys lived into the 70s.
I know. You don't even think about them getting that old. And that, too, by the way, it might seem stupid to people nowadays. That was cinematic comic genius.
It really
stuff
was.
That they did, and the stuff they got away with without dying.
It really was. I went through a phase in my teenage years of just loving the Three Stooges, having to race home from school and watch them in the afternoon. Somebody mentioned Morgan in our chat room mentioned Monty Python, another unbelievable. And I think we're at the 50th anniversary of the introduction to the Monty Python television show, which is Monty Python's Flying Circus on the BBC. I was still am a huge Monty Python fan. That was groundbreaking comedy as well.
Yes. And, John Cleese, to see him nowadays, he's still doing a lot of stuff, although I think he's slowing down a bit. What was he? He was in Harry Potter, of all things.
Yeah.
Mostly Headless Nick. The ghost.
Yeah, he became not only a comedy specialist, but he actually became a comedic actor and was in a lot of stuff. Remember, what was that? Fish Called Wanda was that big film?
Oh my God, that was a fabulous film. That was in my mind. He played a barrister in that too. Jamie Lee Curtis. May I say, with all free zone saying, hubba hubba.
When you say Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah.
Yep.
I get that.
So that was a great movie.
Of course, Jamie Lee Curtis, Janet Leigh's daughter, and Tony Curtis's daughter,
and Tony Curtis, in my father's castle over yonder. There's a big joke
Cleese
about
used to be Cleese used to be a fan, not anymore because of what he does now. What does he do, Field Guy, that makes you not a fan of John Cleese anymore?
Oh,
I'm interested to know there. But the Monty Python stuff was just so unique, and most people didn't think it would fly here in the United States. So what happened was PBS would pick up various episodes and show it late at night, and it developed this cult following. And that cult following, is what supported it. And then of course, they did the movies, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Now, The Life of Brian.
Now, The Life of Brian, we probably should spend a minute talking about, because The Life of Brian is hilarious. However, it was very controversial because many religious organizations and many religious people felt it was blasphemous because, it was talking about the time of Christ. Although Python fans would be quick to point out they never make fun of Christ in the film. They
never once.
Not one time. In fact, there is one scene where they pan over somebody who is portraying. It's assumed it's portraying Christ, and it's very serious. And they pan by this person who's preaching, and then they go to some onlookers who are the Python guys who are having a hilarious conversation. But the film is not about Christ. It's about how quickly people at that time, anyway, were apt to follow somebody for silly reasons. And It's
lot
hilarious.
of political satire
It
in
is.
that movie.
That's exactly right. It's political satire at its best.
And for those of you who don't know, Brian was just a guy in first century Judea, gets mistaken for a Messiah type.
And he doesn't want anything to do with it.
Doesn't want to, yeah.
And the more he doesn't want anything to do with it, the more he's followed.
The more he gets sucked into it, and eventually at the end gets crucified.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones, there's Michael Palin doing Pontius Pilate.
Oh, yeah. Strike him, Centurion, very roughly.
Centurion? Yes. I love that. And it's so, some of the humor is so stupid, but so funny. You take a historical character like Pilate and you give him a lisp. And then what has he got? He's got the his friend, Biggus.
Dickus.
And the Roman soldiers would start snickering
every time.
And he'd say, "What's the matter with that name?
Do you have a problem?"
And he would come up to him very closely. He says, "Why do you laugh when I say Biggus, Dickus?"
So funny.
And yeah. So anyway, what was his wife's name? There's a trivia quiz. What was Biggest Dickus's wife's name?
Oh, I don't even think I know that.
You think that's funny? What about Incontinentia buttocks? And see, stupid name, but the humor was so, they knew what they were doing. Those guys.
Yeah.
Now I know Graham Chapman is dead. I think all those guys are still alive though. Michael Palin, John Cleese. Loved Michael Palin's historical, like world travel stuff.
Yeah.
He did a big thing on PBS where he traveled around. What did he do? Around the world in 80 days or something like that?
Yeah, something like he. I mean, they're all geniuses in my estimation.
Yes.
I mean, really, really incredible stuff. And Monty Python humor isn't for everybody, but man, it sure is for me. And my friends and I, my high school buddies and I, still quote Monty Python. And that's actually, there's a convergence. You and I have been there, Scotty, in Minneapolis, where one of the program tracks is Monty Python quotes, and they just have a bunch of people in the audience quoting Monty Python. Remember that?
That's it. I do.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
And by the way, I just have to say, I lost a year one weekend at Convergence.
Yes, that'll happen. That will happen at Convergence. Although, from what I'm understanding, I haven't been in a couple years now, but from what I'm understanding, it's changing significantly.
Everything's changing.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I used to do the Minnesota Renaissance Festival back in the day. We're talking, I got my start out there, 95 or 96. And that's back in the day. And as you can imagine, just with all the, as time has gone on, it is not the place it used to be.
Yeah.
So for various reasons. But
yeah.
anyway.
I'm a little embarrassed to say tonight that I'm not drinking anything too sophisticated. I've got cans of Miller Lite, Light. And because I forgot to get something better than this, so I
would say any port in a storm, but sometimes you just have to go, no thanks.
I'd actually considered going to vodka soda, but if I did that,
see how that would work.
Yeah, see if I did that, Scotty, you remember the bar you set the first week we did this?
Totally different show.
Yeah, do you remember the bar you set? I would blow through that, and you'd have to fly here to end the show because I wouldn't be capable.
Yes, I understand very well. Folks, I will say this, and this is giving away no secrets. It won't be too personal, or too TMI, but I have seen JV in a different light than many of you have seen him. And, we're talking a good, I think the last time you and I had a little bender of any sort, it had to be 10 years ago. When you and I did that, but I take that back. There was Convergence.
Yeah,
but sometimes when you get away from all the trappings of everything you have to do, all your responsibilities, and you're someplace where you can, and you let loose. Jimmy was a lot of fun to hang out with.
Well, I'll say the same thing about you, Scotty. We've had a lot of fun, whether it was at the Stanley Hotel,
yes,
or it was at Convergence, or I think we were at Rolling Hills a couple times, maybe Mount
Rolling
Washington.
Hills.
I mean, we've visited a lot of bars.
State. Were
Yeah,
you at Eastern
yes,
State?
absolutely. We've had a lot of fun doing that for sure. If we only had a microphone and a webcam at that point, we could have done some of this stuff, and we probably
imagine having gone live. I did once a live broadcast for my podcast from the Stanley Hotel in the conference room that's right up above the front deck. So in that conference room, and I had and this had to be in 2009. I had Grant came up. Jason couldn't make it up, but Grant was up there. I can't remember if you were up there or not. There was Chris Williams, Amy Bruni came up, Britt Griffith, Scott Grunwald, and a bunch of people you recognize. And we had a good time with that. That's a good one. That just popped into my head. So we had some good times.
That's a lot of fun. I want to talk about something a little bit more serious right now, because you had brought up in the first couple of times we've done this about, we talked about paranormal television, and we talked about the resurgence and the introduction of new programs and reboots of programs. And you brought up Hellier.
Yes.
And I had not seen it. And just the other day, I actually had some time, so I started to watch it. I've watched the first episode of the first season, and I've watched like 5 minutes into the second episode. So I haven't gotten very far. But I am watching it, and I'm assuming you've seen more than that, right?
I've seen both seasons now.
Okay, so you've seen the whole thing. So I have to ask you this. What is your overall impression of the legitimacy of what's being talked about here? And I'm not talking about any of the advanced stuff, because like I said, I'm only an episode and a few minutes into the first season. So
are you talking about like the legitimacy of the phenomenon?
I'm talking about the legitimacy of the emails.
Of the email, all of that stuff. Yeah. That's got, to me, that had like a, Kennedy assassination air about it. You're always finding some kind of new thing. Somebody's always delivering different information, and you'll find the emails they keep getting these throughout the show. The emails were legitimate. The question is, and you'll see this will get answered, but that first episode where you're seeing the email from the original guy who told the original story,
David Christie, Dr. David
Christie.
Yeah,
there's a whole hell of a lot to this guy, to more of his emails and what they figure out about him, because they had some of the same doubts. What is the legitimacy of what this guy is saying? And it's interesting. I'll just give you a hint without giving it away, but it's almost like at a point if I'm saying this right, they figured out there was almost like a code to his name and to his emails, and that they were trying to figure out who he was. Now, the problem was they were looking for this guy, and he said he lived there in Hellier. But you know what? Nobody remembered who he was. Nobody knew who he was. They couldn't find any trace of where he was. So they were obviously at the beginning just saying this is obviously a pseudonym. And so it was a very interesting story. I would say after watching the series, I think there's a lot of legitimacy.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm not far enough in to make real judgments, but as I'm watching, the hardcore skeptic in me is thinking, these are plants. This could easily be a plant. This could be a plant to make a television show. I need more information.
Yes.
And of course, Carl Pfeiffer, the director, is a friend of ours. Used to work
at the Stanley.
Yep, used to work at the Stanley. Plus, he worked for us. Scotty, you were editor of Taps Para magazine for a while. I was publisher, and he used to write a regular column, so we know him rather well. I really respect Carl a lot. He's done some tremendous work.
Yes, I like him. He was the first guy. Well, I had sent an email to Newkirk's. Why am I slipping on his first name? Doug Newkirk.
Oh my God! Yeah, I would. Greg.
I felt like a psychic for a minute there.
Greg.
It's a G name.
Greg.
G name? No,
Greg.
no,
Greg.
not a G name. An H name?
Greg.
No.
Greg.
No. B.
Greg.
A B name.
Greg.
G name.
Greg.
Greg. Is it Greg?
Greg. Isn't it?
Nah. See, there you go. It was a G name. So Greg Newkirk, yeah. And Dana, I've bumped into them before where they're doing their little traveling show thing, and they bring their.
Where'd you go?
I'm right here.
Oh.
I heard talking. This is weird.
What is
For
that?
no reason at all, my phone. And now it's gone. My phone. It was my Siri voice, and which I have said is a female Australian, by the way, was reciting definitions of the jinn. I haven't looked
That's
up
strange.
the jinn.
Hold on, I have to say hi to my daughter.
And all of a sudden, I must have said something that was like, "Hey Siri, who are the jinn?" What did I say? That well, there it goes again. That's it. Yeah, I said something that came across it, but I heard voices talking, and I'm like, so it was my phone.
Okay, well, that was some unexpected entertainment there.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Oh, boy.
I'm not saying this was that, but things that we call coincidences, like that, which just happened with my phone.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying saying there's anything spiritual to that at all, but let me ask you a question. Have you had things like that happen where all of a sudden there's a synchronicity? Now, there might be something psychic to this, or as I always say, telepathic to it, but I'm not psychic, I'm telepathic. But where, say, for 2 days in a row, you're talking about a topic. It's like, I don't know, whatever, Porky Pig. Just Porky Pig. And you talk about, I haven't seen Porky Pig cartoon in 50 years. Porky Pig. And the next day, you're out shopping or something, you're out driving, and on the radio, somebody says something about Porky Pig. You go, oh, that's weird. I was just talking about Porky Pig the other day. I haven't talked about him in 30 years. And then the next day, you're like at your, your office, and somebody says, oh, hey, I got you this cute little Porky Pig thing. And you're like, what the living F? And then of course your phone, suddenly your phone pulls up all by itself, Porky Pig on the fourth day. Now this is it. It's like the jinn. We talk about the jinn from time to time. There's a connection with Hellier, I think, to these elementals. You talk about elementals, you talk about the fae, fairy folk, the jinn, all of this stuff. And here we're talking about, and my phone just starts rattling off something about the jinn in an Australian accent. I thought it was interesting. That's all.
No, I find that I'm thinking through that, because I actually, if you said, name a synchronicity circumstance that you can, happen to you that you can talk about, I couldn't come up with one. And I think part of it is because I don't pay attention to things like that. I mean, not when I say like that,
yeah.
I don't pay attention to anything with that type of focus. But I would also say this. I would say that we probably discount what I would call our awareness or lack of awareness. For example, you used the Porky Pig example.
Sure.
Let's say, you talk about 100 different topics during the course of an average day.
Yeah.
One of them was Porky Pig. You encounter during the course of every given day, tens of thousands of messages and influences and visuals and all these. What are the chances that one of those 100 things that you talked about during the course of that day is going to show up in those 10,000 or 100,000 maybe influences, messages, sounds, pictures that cross your path during the course of the day and any given day? Now, and if you hadn't been thinking about Porky Pig, maybe Porky Pig crosses your path, 10 times every day, and you just don't pay attention to it because you weren't thinking about Porky Pig.
It might be, but it's because you're talking about it, you become aware.
That's right. So all of a sudden, there's an awareness that didn't exist before. So now that you're thinking about Porky Pig, when a Porky Pig I'm trying to come up with a better word than message, but when a Porky Pig connection shows up during the course of your day, you're going to point it out and recognize it because you're thinking that. So
I was just talking about Porky Pig.
So I'm not really sure if these things are some type of synchronicity that's, there's some higher power creating them for us, or it's just the way we pay attention or don't pay attention to things.
It's like the whole time prompt thing. Oh, wait,
Right.
I do have to stop and say this in the chat room.
Yes.
I got to say hi to Audrey. Audrey, how you doing? She is our Man Friday over on Rocky's show and my show.
Oh, awesome.
And she is awesome. She does all the stuff that needs doing. She puts all the links and stuff and types them. So Audrey, nice to see you here in the chat.
Thanks for joining us here tonight, Audrey.
And she's the bomb. So I was talking about the time prompt thing, the whole 11:11 thing.
Right.
And how many times do we look at the clock every day? But only twice a day could we catch the clock at 11:11.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny sometimes. I look at the clock all the time. I do a radio show. I look at the clock probably 60 times.
Yeah, me too.
During a radio show because I want to glance. I want to see where I'm at.
Yep.
You look at the clock for everything. But that one time you'll look up, you'll go, God, what time is it? Oh, it's 11:11. Oh, time prompt. And one that catches me is 444, because I had a little ghost story that goes with that. Is it all right if I tell a little ghost story?
Please tell a little ghost story.
My wife, Rainey, now this is back when we were not married yet. We were dating. And so.
Were you shacked up? Were you shacked up at the time?
We were a little shacked up at the time.
Okay, so.
But I had this big bed, a California-sized bed, California king-sized bed in the bedroom. And it sat at a diagonal in the corner. And it was two rooms that had been made into one big room, wood floors. And it was a huge bedroom. And I had one of these old bedspreads that I don't think they even make them anymore. I still have it now, even though it's 15 years later. One of those Woolrich bedspreads. It was the brown suede on the top, soft, like soft suede with the faux sheep lining on the bottom, sheep, woolly type of looking puffy stuff. Pile lining, that's what I'm looking for. It was a great bedspread, but you'd roll it up and the thing, carry it, and the thing was, God, that thing had to weigh like 40 pounds. So here we are. We're sleeping in bed. And all of a sudden, I got this huge comforter. It's pulled way up. And all of a sudden, it was as if somebody had taken a hold of that at the end of the bed. And now for my next magic trick, whoosh. And they just yanked that blanket off of us. And it went flying off of us. And I sat up in my stupor. It woke me up. I sat up in my stupor and I reached down and I grabbed it at my ankles and I pulled it back up. And I thought, wow, that was extraordinary. And I turn over and I'm looking at the clock, and the clock says 4:44 a.m. Now, like any good scientist might, or researcher, in the morning, I was like, that was damn peculiar. We've got to figure out why that bedspread came flying off of us last night. And so I thought, maybe we had pushed it off of ourselves through the course of the night and it just slid off the edge of the bed. So I took that comforter every conceivable angle and kept pulling it toward the end of the bed to see how much of that had to have already slid off the bed in order for it to be pulled off the rest of the way. And I ended up with really it had to go all the way down to about a corner on the bed, about 2 feet by whatever that measurement, 2 feet by 2 feet on the corner. And then the weight would finally slowly pull that thing off. This thing got ripped off of us. And so, and then 4:44. And later somebody told me, well, 4 is the number of angels. So if you have 4:44, it was an angelic visitation. And I'm like, really? How do I prove that? And there's no way to qualify it. It's just a story now. So that comes up to me, the time prompt thing. And every now and then I'll look up. I just saw a post, on Facebook, how you get, your past memory posts will come up. I had a memory from like 6 years ago, and all it said, "Yep, 444 again today." And so it's interesting. I've noticed this for like 15 years now, and I don't go looking for 444 unless my mind is, synced with a clock and it's a psychological thing. But I see that all the time now. I'll look up. We'll be out at the store. My mom will go, "What time is it?" And I'll go, "Oh, it's 444." And so, interesting things like that. What do you think of those kinds of things? Those
Well, I will tell you,
coincidences.
my number is 665. And so, when I look at the clock, I constantly see 665.
665.
And just kidding.
I'm
no,
like,
I've actually for a very long time wanted to do an experiment with this. And basically, and this is a difficult thing to do because especially if you're on the go, but every time I just happen to look at the clock, I want to write down the time. And then I want to go back through and look and see if there's any pattern. Because my personal feeling is that, and you're right about the 11:11. I mean, there are a lot of people that have studied that and say there's a real significance to that. But right. You know what? Clocks are human devices and human creations, and not every clock is set to the same time. And, so how can this be mystical in any way unless it's just the numbers? But I think that if it would be a rather good exercise to do that. Maybe it'd only take one day of logging it. And just say every time you look at the clock, because again, same thing. I'm thinking 11:11 because I've been told it's mystical, whatever. So, the other 1,058 times I look at the clock, it doesn't mean anything. But the one time I see 11:11, I think, oh wow, I always see 11:11. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure. I'm anxious to hear what our chat room has to say about this.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want to call in and have a discussion instead of typing on your phone or your computer or whatever it happens to be, it's 607-282-4029. We will be answering these calls unscreened, so please be on your best behavior.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Are we going to take callers tonight?
Well, we will if somebody calls. People have been kind of quiet here. I think people are still like kind of in this New Year's hangover, and I don't mean that in an alcoholic sense. I mean just kind of this, holidays are over. We did the New Year thing, and now people are kind of slowly getting back to work. It's Friday. I think everybody's just kind of on a real low key right now.
It is. Fridays are rather low key, so
especially the ones that follow a 2-week holiday period.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. I love the holidays and I love the time off, but I got to tell you, it was really nice having children go back to school yesterday.
I bet it was. Let's see what's our, okay. So it's East Coast time, 12:14. We're gonna end this at 12:30 tonight, just because I think that everybody needs to get some rest, including me.
Me too.
So let's spend a minute talking about another topic. I wanted to address this Hellier thing a little bit more, and you've seen a lot more of it. So let me do this. I'm going to watch more. I imagine I'll binge watch it, and I'll probably be done in a week or so. With both seasons, seasons 2 is also on Prime. Right?
Season 2 is what was just released in December,
and that's on Prime as well, right?
Yep, that's on Prime.
Okay. So I'll get a chance to do that, and we can have a more intelligent conversation down the road about that. But I do want to talk about haunted locations and their histories. How important to you is the history of a location that you're looking at from a haunting perspective? So you go to investigate a location. How important is the history of the location to you in that investigation?
I think extremely important for me. I'm a historian, first of all. So I love history. I like to go to a place and I like to know what's going on there. What happened in this house? Why was this? Who built this house, and so on. We had Rocky Stucci and John Ward, my British archaeologist friend, and I. We all did an investigation at a house in Minneapolis. It's supposed to be one of the oldest houses around, built in the 1850s, and now it's on a busy strip. There's a bagel shop across the street from it and apartment buildings and so on, but the house is still there, and it was built in the 1850s by French Canadians. which was very interesting because we got EVPs there. We were getting French language. We had somebody said something in a unintelligible language. We thought it was like a pig French, Creole, maybe even something like that.
Pig French.
Really
Did you just say
up.
pig French?
Yeah, like a pig French, like pig German. So some kind of weird thing.
Do they use the word? Hold on. Do they use the word pig to as an adjective to a language? Like I know pig Latin.
Pig Latin.
I know pig Latin,
German.
but do they use that with other language? Like, do they actually say
so.
pig German? Is that really?
I don't think it's improper. I just don't think it was ever used that way.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I do.
Never heard about that. Never heard of pig German or pig.
I use it that
pig
way.
French.
It's like when I sing German opera to my wife.
That's pig German.
Pig German.
Okay, just getting it clear. Now I'm noticing a theme here. You were talking about Porky Pig earlier, or was were you talking about Porky Pig?
Synchronicity.
Is that who it was?
Porky Pig.
Was it Porky Pig or not?
Wow, it was Porky Pig.
And now you're talking about pig German and pig French.
It's uncanny.
What's going on here? What is going on?
I don't.
Here?
Well, this happens to be sitting on my desk. Maybe this has something to do with this thing. Is super heavy. It's like made out of cast iron.
You have a flying pig on your desk too? It's a bank.
And I don't know where we picked that up, but that's
show me. Hold that up to the camera again. I want to see.
All right.
I want to see the wings.
This is the. There we go.
See the wings. Okay.
Let me get him in the camera.
Yeah.
There. So there he is.
Okay. Is that an antique?
The light's kind of washing him out a bit.
What's going on with the butt there? Why is it so worn out? What have you been doing to the back of that thing?
Ask me no questions and I will tell you no lies.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. That's
we've learned something tonight.
Discoloration there.
Yeah, I'm sure it is discoloration. I'm sure that's exactly. Sure, exactly that's what it is.
This thing's got like a screw in it that's holding it together.
You know, I don't need to see that pig's ass anymore. Thank you.
There you go. So, yeah, we picked this up at like I don't know, an antique shop or something.
Yeah, it looks antique. Yeah, for sure.
So, one of those roadside antique shops when you're traveling on the road. But this thing, it weighs a ton. It's like cast iron, I think. So it just happens to be sitting on my desk. Synchronicity. Maybe that's why I thought of Porky Pig, because I sat here looking at a pig.
Maybe that's what did it.
And the only name for a pig I could come up with was Porky Pig. How many more pigs have names in literature or cartoons?
Well, who was Charlotte? What was Charlotte's Web?
That's what came tonight.
Was it Charlotte? No, Charlotte was the spider.
Pig. Charlotte's Web was Charlotte was the spider.
Right. Who's the pig?
Was he Wilbur?
Wilbur was the pig.
Wilbur?
I think that's right. I think that is right. Yeah.
What other pigs are
Arnold?
famous in it?
Arnold the pig from
Arnold the
Green
pig
Acres?
from
Green Acres.
Green Acres.
Yeah. I'm starting to run short after that. Other than I don't know.
After that, it starts to get pretty thin.
I don't know the name of the pigs in 1984.
Bacon, says Teresa.
Not 1984. I mean Animal Farm.
Animal Farm. I don't know were their names. I don't remember the names. You know why? Because I had to read it for school.
Great books, though.
Retain the thing. Oh, yeah.
Animal Farm and 1984. Great books.
Ham from Toy Story.
Ham from Toy Story. That's right. Yeah. Babe the Pig from Babe the Pig.
Babe the Pig. That's right.
Toey, who's Peppa Pig?
That'll do.
Who's Peppa Pig? Who's Peppa Pig? Who's Peppa Pig?
Peppa Pig. Daddy. It's a cartoon my kids watch.
Oh, Piggly Wiggly. Isn't that a convenience store, Teresa?
That's a grocery store.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at all these pig names.
Wow, pig names.
Peppa Pig I had totally forgotten about, Deirdre. But my kids every day, I got a 5-year-old girl and an 8-year-old girl, the 5-year-old totally mesmerized by Peppa Pig.
I'm going to step away to get another beer.
All right. Let's see. Planet Weird channel, YouTube. Let's see. What else we got? You hate Peppa Pig. I've gotten tired of Peppa Pig at times. Daddy. So he always snorts when Daddy talks. Isn't it Granddad in Peppa Pig has the voice talents of the very famous Brian Brian, not Blair, Brian Blair, Brian something. He was all, you'd remember him from Star Wars. He did the voice of the
Miss Piggy. We didn't say Miss Piggy.
Oh, Miss Piggy. That's right.
Petunia Pig.
Brian,
Audrey, who's Petunia Pig?
Who was the famous British actor? Still is.
Charles Lawton?
Big voice.
Charles Lawton?
No. He's Brian somebody.
Ray Milland?
No. Try again. Brian somebody.
Richard Burton?
No.
I'm just ignoring the fact you're saying Brian somebody.
Yes. I can't think of his name.
I can't think
Brian
of his...
Blessed.
I have no idea.
Brian Blessed. He's got that voice that kind of sounds like that, except he's much deeper and richer and like an opera singer doing voice talent. So
I want the chat room. I want everybody in the chat room to name their single most favorite cartoon character. Just one.
Let's hear it. Just one.
Let's see what we get
Just
here.
one.
Let's see what comes up.
Don't cheat.
Yeah, no cheating. Just one. And everybody do it now so it's all at the same time. So you can't read other people's things.
Yeah, really. Write it down like this.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that show when Wrenchy.
Which one?
This is something with Caillou.
See, this is this is all the language of people that have rather young children still, and I do
is
not.
like a Canadian self-help cartoon for kids or something.
Canadian self-help.
I hate that show. Marvin the Martian. Yeah.
Okay,
Marvin
so
the Martian.
Toei, Roadrunner. So we got Bugs, we got Scooby Doo.
Oh,
Roadrunner.
Kids nowadays. My kids watch cartoons. I showed them some old Warner Brothers Bugs Bunnies the other day. They were like,
Winnie the Pooh, Toei?
Boring, Dad.
I mean, Winnie the Pooh is a classic, the original Disney film.
The originals.
Yeah, or cartoon, whatever you call it.
Sterling Holloway, who did the voice for.
But Field Guy and Philip, you kind of copped out here. No, Field Guy and Plumbing. Field Guy and Plumbing, you kind of copped out. You gave us a cartoon show.
That's not a character.
Yeah, we're looking for one.
You gotta have like
your
Beavis
favorite
or Butthead
character. Mel Blanc. Philip. He did so many voices.
Oh, Mel Blanc was amazing.
So many voices.
He died in an accident, tragic accident.
Tweety Bird. Michelle's like Tweety Bird.
Optimus Prime.
You know that period in animation? It's like, I don't know, late 60s, early 70s animation where all the backgrounds were like kind of abstract. There was no real detail.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
That bugs the shit out of me.
And they always had music like if Optimus Prime was going to fly, I'd show him in one position, and the background would just be this abstract going flying by him, and it had music like that
was almost the theme to SWAT.
You're like, where's he going?
You almost sang the theme to SWAT there. Remember the theme to SWAT?
Oh, that's
right. Yes,
yeah, I got it.
SWAT. That's the one. Oh.
I just saw one here. Oh, my favorite, Johnny Quest.
Richie goes to Johnny Quest. Yeah, good one.
You all know who did the voice of Johnny Quest? Still a guy who's still a famous actor now?
Richard Burton. Charles Lawton.
Richard Burton.
Ray Milland.
No, it wasn't Richard Burton. Thank you for playing. Who played Johnny Quest's voice? I just saw him in something, I thought. You'll know him. Matheson. Tim Matheson.
Oh, Tim Matheson? Oh, really?
Yeah. He was the voice of Johnny Quest.
Tim Matheson.
Now, every time you watch one of the old
actor,
Johnny Quest.
Hold on. The actor from Animal House, Tim Matheson?
Tim Matheson from Animal House.
Wow.
What else was he in?
I thought Johnny Quest really predated. I mean, Johnny Quest was in the 70s.
No, 60. I think Johnny Quest premiered
There's no way
64.
There's no way Tim Matheson did the voice for Johnny Quest in the 60s.
He did the voice for Johnny Quest. He was like 10 years old.
Oh, he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
that's right. I forgot he was.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
He was a kid doing a kid voice.
Now it makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
And you listen to Johnny Quest and you'll hear it. Just look up a clip and you'll hear Tim Matheson's
what really
voice
bothers me about all these the favorite cartoon characters that are being talked about in our chat room is nobody mentioned Bullwinkle or Rocky
or
Sherman and Peabody or Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley.
Chumley.
I loved those cartoons.
Tennessee Tuxedo will not fail. Who did his voice?
Don Adams. That was Don Adams.
Don Adams. Same as Get Smart.
Yeah, Get Smart.
Remember that?
That was a great show, too.
Yes, it was.
Talk about great comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Let's see. There was, this one will really date me, but it still is way before my time. But I remember seeing it when I was a little kid. Mighty Mouse.
Oh God, I loved Mighty Mouse, and it was kind of rare.
It was
rare that you could actually catch it.
Yeah, I know. We saw it on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't. And then there was Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse. Remember that one?
Yes.
Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse. And remember Underdog? Underdog was another great one.
Yes, Underdog was fantastic.
Yeah.
Who was the one? He played he was like a cougar or a panther, and I think he was one of the Warner Brothers lineup or Hanna-Barbera lineup, along with the whole Yogi Bear and Boo Boo.
Magilla Gorilla?
And there was Magilla Gorilla, but this was a guy, he was like a cougar, yellow in color, and he had a white collar with a bow tie.
Oh,
Exit.
Stage left. Yeah, right. Who the heck? Oh my God, yeah. How about Kung Fu? What was that? Chop Suey? What was that? Hong Kong Fooey?
Hong Kong. It was something like that, and I can't remember.
Hong Kong Fooey and oh yeah, somebody did. D just put it in Hong Kong Fooey in the chat room.
Mighty Mouse versus Minnie Mouse Celebrity Death Match.
Wow,
I don't remember that one, Philip.
There were a bunch of those like Hong Kong Fooey and the Chan Clan. Remember Charlie Chan and the Chan Clan? And
the Charlie Chan, when they took Charlie Chan and made him a cartoon.
Yes, I have to tell you, one of my guilty pleasures is to watch Charlie Chan films from the 30s and 40s.
Oh, it's great watching.
They are great watching.
I love watching those.
Popeye is classic. I love the early Popeyes when all he does is mumble all the time.
Yeah,
he's just mumbling, and you listen if you actually listen to what he's saying, it's hilarious.
Yes,
it's hilarious. Yogi Bear, yeah, Great Bay. Magilla Gorilla. How much is that gorilla in the window? What were there were a whole bunch of
Quick Draw McGraw.
Quick Draw McGraw. Oh, geez. Who's the Mexican mouse?
Speedy Gonzalez.
Speedy Gonzalez.
It'd be like, Andale,
yes, that's right. Talk about, today you couldn't play those things. There'd be an outrage of, because everybody's so hypersensitive to everything. George, the Jetsons, another great one. Flintstones. Nobody mentioned the Flintstones, which I find interesting.
A classic.
Find that interesting. Eeyore.
Here comes. Wait, what was it? With the Flintstones?
Yeah. I just
driving the car down the street by the courtesy of Fred's
2 feet.
I can't think of the two.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how it starts too. I can't come up with it. Oh boy.
Flintstones. Meet the Flintstones.
There you go. Yes.
They're your modern Stone Age family from the town of Bedrock. They're a place right out of his story. Here comes. No.
I don't think it's Here Comes. Is it?
Not Here Comes. Let's ride with the family down the street through the courtesy of Fred's 2 feet. When you're with the Flintstones.
Oh, Toey said Kazoo.
Have a yabba dabba do time.
Kazoo was on. What was he on? What was he on? He was on.
That was Flintstones.
That was also
he
Flintstones.
Was a little Martian
that's
character.
right. Yes, that's right. Boy, Toey, so uptight.
Wow.
Darkwing Duck. I think that's kind of newer on Disney Channel.
That one was pretty good though. That Darkwing Duck has to be at least 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years is new to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's newer
it's
stuff.
New to me.
But it was well done, which was nice. SpongeBob.
The vitamins were good too.
Okay, we're gonna mention SpongeBob. I got to mention Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, actually, SpongeBob came up quite a bit in the chat. Ren and Stimpy I saw there as well. I've never seen Ren and Stimpy. Remember Pinky and the Brain?
Yes.
That was a good one.
What are we going to do today, Bride? Same thing we do every day.
Take over the world. I used to really enjoy that show. Oh, well, I don't know. And then you've got the longest running television show ever, I think, The Simpsons.
Oh my God. And see, I've gotten old over The Simpsons.
I have too. I used to love it, and not quite there
They're
anymore.
not as clever as they used to be, and it's like, yeah, whatever. You know, I don't like what. You know what I like now for one modern cartoon? Bob's Burgers.
Oh, my kids were watching that for a while.
I like Bob's Burgers.
I really
That's
didn't.
fairly clever.
I really didn't get it. I'm late to these
Guy
parties.
owns a burger joint. Family.
Yeah,
upstairs,
yeah.
like in Yonkers or something like that. So.
Yeah, the humor wasn't. I don't know. But I didn't like South Park for the longest time too. Now I think it's absolutely brilliant.
I never liked South Park. It was never my thing. Just could never get into it.
Still,
I liked Beavis and Butthead. But
you still don't get into South Park?
Still, no.
That's interesting.
No time for it.
That's interesting because I didn't like it for a long time, and then I started watching it. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and no, not even 10 years ago. But whatever, I started watching, and I'm like, wow, this is actually hilarious.
Yeah, it's been I caught a couple of episodes. I was like, whatever.
I noticed nobody said Gigantor. Do you remember the cartoon Gigantor?
Yes, I do.
Nobody remembers that.
Gigantor,
the space-aged robot.
Yep, and he had he was kind of had the dumb look on his face, and
the dumb look on his face.
He had a dumb look on his face. I remember that.
I suppose he did, yeah.
And it wasn't a cartoon, but it was on in the mix of cartoons on Saturday morning. It was a Sid and Marty Krofft thing, Land of the Lost.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
The Slee Stack.
Yep. But all that Sid and Marty Krofft, Sigmund and the Sea Monster, and H.R. Puffin stuff.
H.R. Puffin stuff.
Not H&R Block.
H&R Block. You watch cartoons and get your taxes done too.
H&R Block and stuff. Powerpuff Girls. That was actually a clever show, I thought. My
Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh yeah. Super Friends.
Space Ghost was one of my favorites. Then they did the Space Ghost on Cartoon Network, which is a totally different thing. But I used to like the original Space Ghost.
They used to do Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
Which I'm really not even sure what that was.
They used the Space Ghost character. That was
and he'd sit behind a desk and
Cartoon Network. Yeah.
Was that done exclusively on Cartoon Network?
Yep. I think so.
Wrenchy mentions the when South Park spoofed Ghost Hunters. That was hilarious.
Oh, that was funny. I did watch that.
So funny.
That was fantastic. Speaking of Cartoon Network, Robot Chicken. It wasn't a cartoon, but it was animated. I liked that a lot. Oh, and the original Thunderbirds.
Oh yeah,
remember that with the marionettes?
With the puppets.
Oh, Colonel,
great stuff. Oh, Steven mentioned
go attack the space monsters.
Steven mentioned
today.
Fat Albert. Was Bill Cosby?
Yeah.
Was Bill Cosby?
Bill Cosby.
Yeah. Wow.
Hey.
Wow, it's funny this is like all these memories flooding back with this stuff.
I know.
It's crazy.
This was my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So
crazy stuff.
Sad about Bill Cosby.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
Some people say, that's not sad. He deserves everything he gets. I'm like, I got to say, I don't excuse what he did, but you got to think he did this stuff in a different time when stuff was different back then. There was something different about it. And okay, I get it. Don't get mad at me. He drugged people.
Yeah, that's a little over the line when you start drugging people.
Does cross the line.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right in the sense that it's not fair. And I'm not talking about him specifically, but it's not fair to judge people through the prism of changing times.
Right.
You really need to judge people in the time that whatever act was.
And what you think about Bill Cosby when you look at him, look at that highly successful career. And was it 5 years ago? Maybe all this stuff started with him 6 years ago. This man has gone down, talking about legacies, to leave multi-millionaire off of everything he did.
Mm-hmm.
This man is going to die penniless.
Yep.
And probably in prison.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
And
very sad. Wow. Very sad for anybody.
One early series I saw him in, which after we knew who Bill Cosby was and all of that, was in the early 60s. He did I Spy. Do you remember that series?
I don't remember I Spy.
With I don't remember the male actor in that. The other actor, and Bill Cosby was a male too. but they played spies, and it was a serious, semi-serious, like shows of the '60s series. He was in that, and that was a really good series.
Teresa
It's like
mentioned
The Saint and stuff like that.
Teresa mentioned Dudley Do-Right. Who was the animation house that did all of those? The Dudley Do-Rights, the Bullwinkles.
Wasn't that Hanna-Barbera?
No. That the Tennessee Tuxedo, the Peabody and Sherman, Fractured Fairy Tales, all that stuff.
I'm curious now. I'm curious enough to look it up.
Spy versus Spy. That was a Mad Magazine thing, wasn't it?
That was Mad Magazine.
Yeah, that was good.
Dudley Do-Right. Let's see. Snidely Whiplash.
Yeah,
was his guy with the big mustache. Nell Fenwick was the damsel in distress. Let's see. I'm curious who did this. Created by Alex Anderson with Chris Haywood and Alan Burns. It says portrayed by Brendan Fraser. I'm like, what? Oh, that's right. They did a movie of that. Yeah. Dudley Do-Right was always on with Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
They had
Bullwinkle. They had Fractured Fairy Tales, and they had Peabody and Sherman, and they had it was a kind of a collection of stuff.
I'm trying to see who put this together.
And I still hear that guy that did the narration for all that.
Yes.
That voice.
He had a voice like this. And now
Captain
we
Bragg.
rejoin
Remember
our heroes.
Captain Bragg.
Oh,
right? Or Colonel Bragg. Or
Colonel Bragg.
What was that? Remember the guy that he would talk about these? It was like fish tales. It was these wild stories, how he was in the jungle and charged by 18 elephants. And
Yes. That I was.
Wow.
Let's see. This says that it was owned by, it aired on ABC. It was cartoon produced by J. Ward Productions.
I don't know.
So it was an ABC cartoon. But, wow, they ran for 4 seasons with that.
Only 4 seasons with those cartoons?
4 seasons. That was it. It looks like there was a sum total. I'm looking at the whole discography, if you will.
As in Frankie Valli in the 4 seasons?
Oh, no.
No, that was another joke. I'm gonna have to start putting a joke thing on the screen so you know when I'm telling a joke, because apparently they aren't funny enough to actually be recognized.
Or I'm just not listening very well. The first episode was called "The Disloyal Canadians."
Are you talking about just Dudley Do-Right?
That's just Dudley Do-Right.
Okay,
they had him for. Let's see. Season 1 was 5 episodes. Season 2 was 18 episodes. Season 3 was 11 episodes, and season 4 was 5 episodes.
Okay.
So they did a sum total of what is that? 10, 21, and 18 is what's 21 and 18?
39.
That's 39. They did a total of 39 episodes. That was it. So there you go. That's J. Ward Productions. Okay. All right.
Well, F Troop. Oh, what a great show.
Oh, I loved F Troop.
F Troop is a show that has still not appreciated in its time, or still not at a point where people,
I agree.
At some point it will be, but the end of the Civil War was near when quite accidentally. Remember that?
I don't remember the theme to F Troop.
I just sang it for you.
Well, other than that part. Now I know that part.
It turns certain defeat into victory.
The thing about that show, it's too politically incorrect.
Well, that's it too.
The same way anymore.
Nope. Where Indian fights are terrible sights and nobody takes a licking. Where paleface and redskin both are chicken.
Oh my God! What was the cartoon that had the 2 Indian characters? Where the one Indian character, he would go. And the other woman would say, him say, must go eat lunch, and what was it? That was as politically incorrect as they come. But who were they the foil characters to?
I don't remember, but it was part of that, whatever.
Was it the whole Bullwinkle?
Yeah, it was part of that group.
Okay.
Wow. F Troop.
It just popped into my mind. Yeah, there's a good topic. Can you name all the shows that you watched as a kid that are now politically incorrect?
Yeah.
Well, Hogan's Heroes was one. You can't do a show about
You know what?
Nazis.
Well, that's the
prisoner
fun.
of war
That's
camps.
Hogan's Heroes is one of my favorite shows, and it actually
shows. I loved it.
It shows on MeTV all the time. I watch it, but I when I watch it now, first of all, the thing that is amazing to me about it is that we sit here now and we say, and I'm not one of these people. There are a lot of people who say, "Oh, we can't show that. That's insensitive. We're showing swastikas." Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But when that show aired, the survivors of concentration camps and the men and women that fought in the World War II against the Nazis, they're the ones that made it popular and successful.
That's right. And remember, that show came out only 20 years after the end of World War II.
20 years after the end of World War II. That was it. So,
which ain't nothing.
All those 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds that fought in the war, survived the concentration camps, all those things were now in their 40s. They were in their 40s. They were real adults. They were real adults, and they were the prime target market for network television, and they loved that show. So
because they made fun of the Nazis.
That's exactly right.
And and that was based on. Do you remember what movie that was based off of?
Stalag 13.
Stalag 17.
17. That's right. Yeah,
with William Holden
in the series. With William Holden.
William Holden. That just reminds me. I had a dream once, and I was a kid. Like maybe a college kid, a dream where I was with the whole cast of Hogan's Heroes. And we were this just popped into my head again. I haven't thought of this in years. And Werner Klemperer, who played Colonel Klink.
What a brilliant comedic actor.
Oh, yeah.
And an unbelievable man. He was an amazingly accomplished musician.
Yes.
His father was a world-class conductor. And I've watched some interviews with Wilhelm Klemperer on YouTube, and to listen to him speak, he was just a brilliant man. And he played Colonel Klink, and he did it unbelievably well.
Just fantastic. Hogan.
So good. And John Banner, who played Sergeant Schultz.
John, is it Biner?
It's Banner.
Wasn't it Biner? Banner.
Banner. I always said Banner. And then you've got the cast of Hogan and the quote unquote heroes. Richard Dawson, Robert Clary. I actually reached out to Robert Clary. He's still alive. He's the last one.
He? Mm-hmm. Is he the last one?
He is. He's in his 90s. And I reached out to him, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and he actually replied to me through email, and we were corresponding for a while.
That's cool.
Yeah, totally. Richard Dawson played Newkirk in that, and Ivan Dixon was Kinchlow, and Larry Hulvis was Carter. And such a great ensemble. One of my prized possessions is an album which is very rare. It's hard to find it, and it's called Hogan's Heroes Sings. What the heck? Sings the best of something. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Not Christmas songs.
No, it's not Christmas songs, and it's just a collection of like a cappella stuff that the cast did. And
that's kind of cool.
Because they were all very good vocalists, and it's actually really cool. And my mother, that was one of the last Christmas gifts she got me before she got really too sick to do it. And I cherish it for a lot of reasons, including that one.
Yeah. I always wanted to get one of the flight captain hats like Hogan wore.
Do you know the leather jacket that Bob Crane wore in Hogan's Heroes was the leather jacket that Frank Sinatra wore in the movie not Kelly's Heroes.
Really?
Von Ryan's Express. I
did not know that.
Yeah, and it was the same exact. And Frank Sinatra gave it to him to wear for the series, which is kind of cool.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's in the Smithsonian. Some of those old costumes from the entertainment, like Harrison Ford's hat and leather jacket from Indiana Jones is at the Smithsonian. The old Enterprise model, the 20-foot long one, is hanging in the Smithsonian from Star Trek. There was something I was going to say about Star Trek too. Oh, we were just talking about the cast members that are still alive. Star Trek, they've been dropping off too because
How old is what's his face?
Shatner?
Yeah, how old is he?
Shatner is like, I thought I had heard he was 92, but I might be wrong about that. I know that he's a little older than you might think. He might be 88 or something like that.
He's in his
Find
80s,
out
and
really quick.
he's still doing convention appearances, and he actually looks pretty good.
He looks great.
I'm like,
He was
wow.
born. He's 88. He was born
That's
in
crazy.
1931.
Wow.
1931.
Wow.
So yeah, and he looks fantastic. Did you happen to see
That's crazy.
the game? I think it was a Star Trek game advertisement that came out. Shatner is sitting on the sofa playing a game, and then the camera pans out, and it's the Gorn is sitting next to him from the old original series, The Lizard Man, the fight from the episode entitled Arena. You remember that one?
I do, yeah.
Kirk and the Gorn, and they're sitting there playing a game of Kirk and the Gorn fighting, and they get into a real fight in the living room, and they use some of the same moves from the old. Kirk always used the double karate chop, judo chop, and stuff like that. So it's fantastic ad if you ever get to see that. Go look it up.
I'll make this this one plug here because we're talking about Star Trek on Thursday night's program this week, coming up on Beyond Reality Radio. We're going to be talking with authors Mark Cushman and Vic. I'm not even sure. Mignogna, I think, is his last name.
Vic Mignogna from Star Trek Continues.
Yeah, they've written a book called "These Are the Voyages," and they talk about the making of the series. So we're going to be doing that Thursday night. It's a great show.
I interviewed Vic for radio and Intrepid Magazine when I was doing Intrepid Magazine.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
And I just ran across that not long ago. He is a really interesting guy. Folks, if you haven't seen Star Trek Continues, go look it up. StarTrekContinues.com. And you'll see the episodes. Vic Mignogna was a Star Trek fan when he was a kid. He plays Captain Kirk in the series, and it surprisingly looks like him in the series they've done. His voice is just a little higher than William Shatner's, but and he's a little more muscular than William Shatner was, I think. But
kind of like me.
What's interesting is that Vic said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. He built all the reproduction of all the Desilu studio sets of it was Lucy Arnaz and Desi Arnaz.
Yeah.
That owned the studio, the Desilu sets. He rebuilt them all to the minutest detail. And when they film, they use all the lighting, the same kind of lighting angles that they used in the original Star Trek, all the music, everything about it, camera angles, and they did a fantastic job until Paramount came in about 2 years ago and shut everybody down.
Oh, really?
Even fan films.
What was the name of the series?
Star Trek Continues.
And this was a web series.
A web series. They couldn't charge for any of them.
Right. Was this hold on, just answer my questions. Was this the series that oh crap now. I had two actresses at Scaricon who were part of a fan.
Oh. Yeah, somebody played a No. You had somebody that played an Orion slave girl, Green Orion slave girl, right?
No.
Never mind then.
I had two actresses that played in a fan-produced Star Trek continuation series. And I'm sure it must have been it had to be the same one. It
might be. There's a couple of them out there.
It seems like one of the names was Kim somebody.
I don't know.
And I just don't remember. I'm going to have to look it up.
If you go to Star Trek Continues, or just look up Star Trek Continues and hit images in Google, you'll see some of these. Some of them.
I'm going to do that right now because I want this settled before
But they did a fantastic job, and Vic Mignogna said that when he showed me a picture for the interview, picture of him as like a 10-year-old kid wearing a Kirk uniform, and he's like, you look at him now, he's starting to just get a little bit of age around there. He's my age. Maybe a couple of years younger than I am. And he was playing Kirk and looked pretty damn good playing him. And so
yeah, this is definitely the one. I had two of these actresses.
The one with the red hair in the uniform.
The one with the red hair. The one with the girl with the red hair is one of the ones I had at Scaricon. And what was her name?
Now, that was a character that they created for their series.
Well, regardless, she was at ScareCon, and I think her name was Kim. Oh, yeah, Spect. Spect. Oh, whatever. Okay. We don't need to do this on air. But yeah, so I'm familiar with that series. I didn't realize that's what you were talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, go watch that. They have several episodes, and of course, they had to bring it to an end. And which was sad because they did a fantastic. I think that they were by far the best Star Trek fan series ever done.
Yeah,
because the production quality was like television quality, and it was amazing. And so go take a look at it if you guys, if you're a Star Trek fan.
All right. You know what? We've overstayed our welcome for most of you. And as much as we could continue all night talking about the things that are very important in our tiny little brains, it's probably a good idea that we say goodnight to everyone.
Yes.
So again, thanks to everybody for joining us. Scotty, what's your YouTube channel so people can check it out?
Just go over to Mr. Scotty Roberts. Mr. all spelled out.
And if you're watching the program, you've already found my YouTube channel. Thank you for doing that. Please subscribe to both. Follow us on social media, and we'll catch you next time. Hopefully we can make a regular habit of this on Friday nights.
It was fun. Cheers, everyone.
So long.